نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وإن تولوا إنما علينا البلاغ المبين صدق الله العظيم. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام بادروا بالأعمال سبعا، وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, today we'll be wrapping up our discussions on the fundamentals of Deen. We began with the authenticity of the Quran, and then the authenticity and the history of the compilation of the Hadith. And then for the last couple of days we've been talking about taqleed and ijtihad, and the need and the rationale and the history behind the different madahib and the efforts of our predecessors that went before us. Yesterday was, we went through some of the masail that dealt with that question. So today I'm just going to wrap up on this discussion of taqleed, and then just talk about a few more different masail, and then inshallah we'll leave the rest of the floor for questions. I know a lot of people have questions on this topic. And tomorrow we'll do something a little different, something not so quite technical, a little bit different, because tomorrow may be the last day of your itikaf here, inshallah. So before we begin this last discussion, I want to make a full disclaimer that our discussion here, the point behind the discussion was not to convince somebody, not to convert somebody, not to, cause tension and conflict between people, because I know this may be a topic which sometimes causes, emotions in certain people. But the intention behind these last few sessions was to clarify certain things and to give ourselves and the people that may have some confusion on this topic certain confidence that what they are doing and what has been done within the ummah for the last 1400 years was not some whim, was not something that people that were not qualified just started to give fatwas here and there. That throughout our history, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He Himself has taken on this responsibility. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr wa inna lahu lahafidun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself is saying, we will be the protectors. Here, dhikr definitely is referred to the Quran, but also for the deen. As the deen itself, the whole of deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is protecting the deen. And throughout the Islamic history, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created certain personalities, created certain people who did the appropriate service for deen at that time. And in the initial centuries, we had alhamdulillah, we had the mujahideen who took Islam to other parts of the world. And again, this needs to be clarified. It doesn't mean that Islam was spread through jihad, a very common misconception that Islam was spread by the sword and all that. That's a complete lie. Islam, the biggest Muslim country today is Indonesia. There was no sword in Indonesia. There was no sword in Bangladesh and so on and so forth. But there was a time for that, and people did that. There was a time for the preservation of deen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created these people with these photographic memories, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi, at the time when it was needed. Then there was the fuqaha. Fuqaha are the intellectuals of their time. In fact, some may argue they may be the best intellectuals of history. That's why, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, Hassan Basri rahmatullahi alayhi, Abdullah bin Barak rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created these personalities to do the research, and their research has been, saved with us, since that time. And then later on, as things, developed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always, there was some people who always took on the responsibility of preserving deen. We had the people who debated, as we touched upon that, a couple of days ago, when there was a need, especially when the colonialists, the French and the British and the Dutch, and the Italians, in Northern Africa, when they went out and they started to proselytize, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created people who were the standard bearers of Islam and who were there to protect the confusion of people's minds. So this has been throughout time. So the foundation that we have of Islam is solid. That's the point I wanted to make through these discussions that we had the last few days. That don't be confused, especially now some of the people that want to cause doubts within the Muslims that, oh, you know, your text is not valid. You know, your text is doubtful. Just because their text is the Old Testament and the New Testament, it is. They cannot say that this is the Word of God. That goes without saying. Even, you know, I don't know if you remember, I might be dating myself, but, you know, back in the 80s when Ahmadiyyat, you know, had this debate with, what's his name? Jimmy Swaggart. That's before some of you guys were even born. But anyway, in that discussion, you know, the non-Muslims, they said it themselves. We're not saying that the Bible is the Word of God. It's an inspired word. You know, the gospel, the people that wrote the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they didn't say that this is the Word of God. They said this has been inspired upon me and this is what it said. But we say, yes, this is the Word of Allah. This book was there, you know, the Quran was there in the Lawh Mahfuz, whatever was there word for word is here we have today. This is the living miracle. And the hadith, these are the words of Prophet ﷺ as preserved by people who went through a lot of effort. And that's what we've been discussing for the last couple of days, that it took a lot of effort for a lot of people to verify that the words that we have here are the exact words of Prophet ﷺ. And we gave samples, you know, of the books. Yesterday I brought some of the books. They're here somewhere, and you are free to, you know, to look at them. About the two parts of the hadith, the chain and the text, and that's why that is a science specific to you know, to Islam. Any other, you know, even if you're a major in history, you know, they want to, if they want to verify different texts, they will say, okay, how is this corroborated by other texts or other references of their time? But what these people did, I mean, no one went to, you know, even the historians of today, they would not go into the biographies of the people that gave the references. This science of Asma' Rijal, of the biographies of the people that conveyed the hadith to us, like Imam Bukhari saying, he heard from his teacher, Sahabi. So each one of these people, we have a detailed biography of each one of these people. And I don't know of any other, you know, how can you say, science that goes into that much details. Yes, in the physical sciences, yes, we have. Yes, when Newton said this, and how did Einstein get his theories? Yeah, they give the references back then. But even then, they give the reference of a name. But that name, we don't know the biography of that person. But here, alhamdulillah, we have books and books of volumes and tomes of references of the people that conveyed this message to us. So the point behind this discussion is you should, yes, brother. No, go ahead. Okay, okay. Do you understand the question? The question was, rather than discussing there are some people that completely, how can you say, disagree with the authenticity and the credibility of the ulama. So we're not discussing that group, but there are some people who say strict followers of, let's say, one line. Let's say Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. And then there are those that pick and choose. In some, how can you say, in some fields, in some issues, they stick with one, and then the other issues they stick with the other, and say whatever is best for them. And the example he gave, actually, that is a relevant example. Somebody like a fund manager, mutual fund manager, financial advisor. Either you can turn your finances to somebody and trust their history, what they have been doing, for the last 20 years, 10 years. This is what I've done. My ROI, the return on investment that I've provided for my clients, has been this much. 10% would be a lot, or whatever, 7% that I do. This is what I have been doing. But as compared to somebody who now actually, this is a trend where a lot of people actually, they invest their own money. Even people that manage their own 401ks, and they're every day they're on they're following the stocks. So they say, why can't I do that myself? I think that is a good analogy, in the sense that you can do your own investment, but again, the criteria would be, yes, brother. Okay, yeah, inshallah. Yeah. Inshallah, that's fine. No problem. Inshallah.
Another problem is that here it's easy for me to follow the Hanafi madhab if I am in this masjid. But the place I live, that place, is mostly Shafi'i.
Yes.
So I am forced to follow their some of the things Shafi'i.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. These are current issues, and that, inshallah, they should be addressed. I agree. So that comes back to the question of, should I follow one or not? And I think we touched upon that yesterday. The basis for following one or not is, I think that's a good example, is that you trust somebody's foundation. And in fact, we get to that when somebody tells you certain hadiths from the internet or somebody and say, look, why don't you follow this hadith? And in actuality, what you are doing is you're following this person. We're saying this hadith is Imam Bukhari. Yes, we definitely give deference and respect to this hadith from Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim. But the issue is, does this person know of the alternative hadiths that are there that may contradict this hadith? And we touched on that yesterday, that just because some hadith is in Sahih Bukhari does not mean it is completely applicable today. This is yesterday we gave the example of urinating standing up. That hadith is muttafaq alayh, Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ urinated standing up. So if somebody shows you that hadith, say, look, that's okay, I can use the urinals today. But that discounts the vast treasures of hadith that we have, that are there. And that's where it comes to the experts to be able to discern and to differentiate, okay, this hadith, what did the other hadith say about this? So now to answer that issue of, should I follow one or not? Yes, you should follow one. Why? Because you are, as the awam, as the, how can you say, the layman, either in investing or in medicine or in law, that was the foundation for this discussion. There's two types of people. Either you're an expert or you're not. If you are an expert, your responsibility is to use your knowledge to reach a decision. So in medicine, or in this case, in the field of investing, or in whatever, your job is to do your research. And then you may be right or wrong, but it's still, you have fulfilled your responsibility, which is to do the research. But the opposite is that if you're not qualified, then you are not supposed to do the research. And that makes complete sense. No one is qualified in every field. No one can be an expert financial manager, and an expert doctor, and an expert lawyer, and an expert in computer science. Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, they may, or Mark Zuckerberg, or whoever, Page, started Google. They are the experts in that field. Yes. But when they manage their finances, they don't do their own finances. They have the financial company manage their finances. When they have a medical problem, they don't diagnose themselves. They go to a doctor to ask them to diagnose themselves. Because no one person can be an expert in all fields. And we're not supposed to be. Even, the Renaissance man, Michelangelo and Da Vinci, they may have been back 500 years ago, but today knowledge has expanded to such a degree that no one person can specialize in every field. And in fact, this is completely, practical in today's terms. If you go to a doctor, if you have problems, they would refer you to a specialist. And I mentioned that earlier. Even the specialist will refer you to a subspecialist. If you have a heart history, you go to an internist and say, yes, I think you should go to a cardiologist. Cardiologist says, oh yeah, you may have some, we have to put some stent in you, maybe you should go to, or whatever, you need some surgery, bypass surgery, I could take you to a cardiac surgeon, not just your regular cardiologist. It makes complete sense, because people have specialized in that field. So, similarly, in matters deal with deen, there are people that are experts. And I think maybe that's where our concern comes in, because we are not in touch with these experts. We may know cardiologists, we know oncologists, we may know financial experts, we know many lawyers, but we may not be in company of many deeni experts, people that have studied deen. And that's where I want to give you the good news that alhamdulillah there are people throughout the world. Maybe very few here in the United States, but alhamdulillah they are here. We have Mulana Abdullah Salim Saab in Elgin, we have Mulana Mufti Narwan Saab in Chicago, in Syria Board, and we have Mufti Amtandani, Mulana Abdul Aziz, Mulana Aziz Ahmadi also in Elgin. We are fortunate here in Chicago itself to have senior ulama. And then also we have junior ulamas, those who have studied overseas, in the Islamic universities. And I'm not just talking about complete Deobandi madrasas in India or Pakistan. There are people that study in Egypt, the people study in Morocco, people study in Syria, people study in Medina. But the point is, you need to spend some time studying deen. Not just, a 1 hour, 2 hour research into the internet and you find some verdict. That's the distinction I'm making. And in fact, that's one of the things that I wanted to reiterate today. I wanted to make sure today that we're not discouraging anybody from studying. In fact, if anything, we want you to study. But the thing is, we want you to study in the proper line. Just like somebody who wants to be a doctor, he's not going to just go, I gave the example in India, Pakistan, actually people that are don't know this, maybe they're not, they can't relate to this, but definitely somebody in India, Pakistan, if you're sick, you go to a compounder. Compounder means you go to it's like a pharmacy down the street, and he's the, the specialist of his time. Even though there are, many specialist doctors that are there. They've done their, their research, they've done their studying, but people just don't have the time or the resources to refer to a specialist. They go down the street to somebody selling, medicine. Oh, we start with that. So that is what we're doing. If you want to really study deen, I would prefer go to someone who teaches deen. Again, that's the point I'm making. And how do you know who's qualified to teach deen? That link is very important, my dear brothers. Not just somebody who's a self-taught, from books or nowadays, from the internet. Oh yeah, I've been doing research. Some taxi driver, but on the night I moonlight as somebody who gets fatwas, on the internet, or somebody who's, who's a professor in some other field. But it's just complete. If you just slow down and think, someone who's devoting, let's say, 8, 10, 12 hours a day to something else, and part-time, he's giving to studying deen, it's just the amount of time you're giving to deen. Just logically speaking. You may be a Nobel Prize, physicist, professor in some university. No one is doubting your intellect. But it's just that intellect is being used in a different field. That intellect is being used in the field of science or whatever. Now, part-time, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, or maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, maybe even 10, 20 hours a month, that's what you're giving to deen. And now you're supposing just because I'm an expert in this field, now I have to be an expert in deen. It just doesn't make sense. There are people who devote 10, 12, 14 hours a day to the study of deen. And they've been doing that their whole life. Not just somebody who was an engineer or who was somebody else or a shopkeeper and now they say, okay, now I have time, okay, now let me study deen. So, if you're serious about deen, we want you to go ahead and take that step. But again, the more you enter into the field, the more you realize that you don't know. And makes complete sense. When you enter into the field of medicine, you will realize, as a cardiologist, I don't want to comment on oncology because that's not my field. Even though he's a specialist in cardiology, he's been studying, he does surgeries, and he's the expert, how can you say, bypass surgery. But when you ask him about a cancer, he says, no, that's not my field. Even though he's done the basics. So that's what I'm asking you to do. If you want, study deen under the tutelage, under the supervision of somebody who's also studied deen. That's where we will be protected from these mistakes. Yes, brother.
Follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am presented hadith by someone who I know that is not even a teacher, even a student of the regular person, and I'm kind of following right now, at least what it can do to me is I can take that hadith, bring it to the person I know who is a teacher and a scholar, and get understanding of both the contradictory hadith and the hadith based on which I'm following a certain action.
Yes, you can. The question was, let's say I'm not an expert in deen, but somebody brings me a reference of some hadith, and I know this person, is just is not qualified to give verdicts and stuff. So what should I do then? So the brother suggested, look, I can take this if I really want to increase my understanding. Yes, you could take that reference to someone who does know. That's the Quran is saying this. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Exactly. So, but before we do that, and some people, to be honest, may not have time for that, and it causes a lot of confusion to many people. And if that is the case, and sometimes somebody may bring you a reference, you don't know who this guy is. He may be some sheikh from some country, or maybe just some taxi driver down the street who just downloaded something. The criteria that we should ask them is that, brother, what is your qualification in deen? That is something that we can ask people. Just as somebody's giving you, if somebody says, hey, take a Tylenol or take this as as an antibiotic, they say, brother, what is your background in the study of medicine? We would feel, it's completely valid for me to ask somebody's giving me a prescription for a certain drug. You can't just take it on faith. Oh yeah, he's my cousin, or he's my cousin's brother's neighbors, or whatever. Oh yeah, I trust him. No, he said, brother, what is your qualification to give this prescription? So similarly, somebody's giving me hadith, said, the brother, what is your qualification in dini knowledge? And that is something we should learn to ask. And in fact, just to extrapolate that point, many people that are saying that we don't follow any imam, we just follow Quran and Hadith. In reality, to be honest, and if you really explore and delve into what they're saying, they are following. No one is a complete, mujtahid. Today, somebody who claims to be, they say, oh yes, I'm following this Hadith, but who told you where this Hadith was? A lot of people that are reading this Hadith, reading translations on the internet. They don't even have the foundation in Arabic to read it. And if you read Sahih Bukhari, have you read all of Sahih Bukhari? I'm not just talking about, have you read all of Sahih Bukhari? Have you read all of Sahih Muslim? They're not even worse on the Sahih Sittah. Have you read all of Muwatta Malik? Have you read all of Sunan Abu Dawud? not just the Sahih Sitta, then we can say, okay, somebody who claims to be giving you this verdict, then we can ask him, brother, have you read Musannaf ibn Shaybah? Like I brought it yesterday. That's just one volume of a 9-volume book. Have you read Ilai Sunan, which is 22 volumes? Not just one part, somebody told them, do you have that solid foundation? Just as somebody who is giving you a prescription, you would ask them, look, do you have a foundation in organic chemistry? Do you know basic biology? Somebody just taking Bio 101 and now he's telling you, take this medicine, that's not a solid foundation.
Someone to pass on Sahih Hadith from the transcript of, say, Bukhari, say, Muslim, he has to have read all of that, what you just mentioned?
So the question is, in order for someone to pass on something, does he have to have read? No, he doesn't. In fact, that's a good point. But in order for you to understand, you do not. But when you are giving fatwa to somebody, yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you're telling somebody, yes, you do. If you're doing it for your own understanding, no problem. In fact, if you want to study medicine, you can study in your own. You can, you can take the books to med school. You can, if that's what you like to do. Hey, all the power to you. But don't be prescribing your understanding onto other people. When you do that, that's when you do have to have the expertise. Okay, there was a question. Yes, ma'am. Walaikum assalam.
I understand that reasoning, where of course they have done research, of course, following the experts who have done research. That makes sense. But that's also like brought up another relevant situation where, and especially in Ramadan, where there's Fiqh, for example, the Muslims where Fiqh is being led by Shafi'i Imam. So that's not this kind of Hanafi method of trade, but so there are many situations where strict Hanafi will not raise any Imam or will
Right, so let me answer that question. What he asked was, if I'm in a neighborhood where they're non-Hanafis, what do I do? Well, it is okay to follow someone who is in non-Hanafi. To be honest, when we go to the Haram, they're Hanbalis. And they pray, even though they pray 20 rakat, that should be clear. They pray 20 rakat, unlike some who say 8. But we are following them as far as the timing of Asr. They pray Asr earlier than, let's say, Hanafi would pray. So the fatwa is, if you are in an area where where the others are of a different madhab, again, only these 4, then it's okay to follow them because they are also following Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi or Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi. And for us, all are okay. Because they did the research, we're okay with following them. We have no problem with that. The problem comes in when you're not following Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal or Imam Shafi'i, but you are following your own research. That's where the problems come in. So to answer your question, if you're living in an area, like example, if you're living in the Haram, if you're living in Mecca, or if you're living in the Gulf areas, or if you're living in, let's say, close to Bridgeview, or in some areas, outskirts of not in major metropolitan areas, so that's okay to follow your local local imam. In most issues. In certain issues, then there may be some questions as far as maybe like doing masa over the socks and stuff, and that maybe we can get into later on. But in most issues, there's no problem. As far as if they pray Asr a little earlier, no problem. If they if they're like the witr, they pray witr 2 and 1, no problem. That's the way they do it. That's, if you go to the Haram, there's nothing wrong with that. Because we are following them because they are following Imam Shafi'i. Imam Shafi'i to us is the same as Imam Abu Hanifa, is the same as Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, the same Imam Malik, because we give deference and respect to all the shuyukh, those that have given the proper, who have done the proper research. Inshallah, if that answers the question. Let me just cover a couple more things, and then I know you have more questions. So am I clear here? I just wanted to make sure. If somebody gives you this reference, take this hadith, I don't follow any of these madhabs, I follow this reference. But you're not. Somebody who is giving you this, something that they downloaded from the internet, they are actually themselves following the internet. So their imam is the internet. I mean, quite literally. Or their imam is the person who gave them that hadith. And what we will say to them is, look, I respect your research, but I respect Imam Abu Hanifa's research more than yours. Simple as that. Yes, you may have read a few hadiths off the internet, you may have read maybe a few pages of a translation of some hadiths, but I would respect somebody who has memorized over 500,000 hadiths, and whose taqwa I am comfortable with. Not somebody who's clean shaven, not somebody who urinates standing up and say, oh, now here, listen to me because I'm giving you this hadith. So I just wanted to clarify that somebody's doing that, they're actually themselves, they are muqallid. They're saying they're ghair muqallid, they're saying they don't follow anybody, but they are themselves, in actuality, they're following because somebody told them that. Because they don't have how can you say, the expertise in having to have the reference of all these hadiths. Few more things that I know you have questions. And from this, it's completely logical that if we were to just give importance to the Quran and Hadith and not to the Ijma' Sahaba and the books and the works of the fuqaha, then the logical step would be, let's say someone becomes a new Muslim. We're giving da'wah to mashallah, and we're all, alhamdulillah, we're very happy when somebody becomes a Muslim. We say, Allahu Akbar, Takbir. So then now somebody becomes a Muslim. So what is the next step? Are you going to give him the Quran and give him Bukhari here? Now you learn how to pray? No. You can, I would say, majority of people sitting here, if I were to give you the Quran, I was to give you Bukhari, would you be able to learn how to pray from there? No, we would not. In fact, even some of the people that are students of deen, that they would not be able to do it. You need to have the effort of the fuqaha who would tell you, okay, now that you're a Muslim, you say Allahu Akbar, raise your hands up here, and then you say this dua. Because in Bukhari, they don't have this dua of sana. And if you say, yes, he said kabbara, he said takbir, did he say out loud or silently? And then, yes, he may say he did rafa them, but did he, it also says in the Bukhari riwayat, that when he came up from sajda, they also used to do rafa them then too. So why aren't you doing it now? So the point is, just the books of hadith and the books of Quran are not enough, especially for a new person. You're definitely going to confuse him. You're going to confuse us, but ourselves. We don't have the time to go and just, or the expertise, just to go straight from the Quran and hadith and to learn how to pray, or to learn the masail of zakat. It's not in there. What else? So that's fine. So we'll finish with this, and I know you have other questions. So I just want to make clear that the Sahaba Ikram themselves, they did taqleed of other. The Muhaddiseen, that's one, I'll finish with this. The Muhaddiseen themselves were muqallid. What does that mean? Even though they are the standard bearers of hadith. We are the, Sahih Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi was a Shafi'i. So we say, I'm learning this hadith, but let's follow what the hadith. No, Imam Muslim, the muhaddith himself, he himself was a muqallid. He said, look, I am transmitting the hadith, just as we mentioned yesterday, the difference between the muhaddithin and the fuqaha. Muhaddithin were just the transmitters, just like a hafiz. He's regurgitating what he has learned. He's memorizing and he's transmitting to the next generation. That's all they did. The muhaddith, and that was important. So I'm not minimizing what they did, but that is their service, that they preserved the words of the hadith and they transferred to the next generation. But they did not analyze the hadith. That's where the fuqaha comes in. So even the muhaddithin that we have today of the Sahih Sitta, amongst the Sahih Sitta, only Imam Bukhari was a mujtahid mutlaq. But the others, they themselves were muqallid. Imam Abu Dawud was a Shafi'i. Imam Muslim was a Shafi'i. He followed Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi. So they understood that yes, I am presenting this volume of authentic hadith, but I don't qualify myself to interpret it and to give fatwas from it. He said, no, I follow Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi. So that for us should be a reference that look, if he himself is following Imam Shafi'i, who am I to discredit him? Inshallah. So I know there were questions. Yes, brother. So the question, I think the brother is saying is that, how would you respond to someone who's saying that, why are you following Imam Abu Hanifa or Imam Shafi instead of following this hadith? Right? That's what you're saying.
How do you defend this view? Like, I don't have enough knowledge to say that I can say what they are more qualified, that's why I'm following them. So like, or you're following them blindly, and you're not following the Rasulullah.
Right, and that we tell them, yes, I am following them blindly. Just as I follow my doctor blindly, just as I follow my financial advisor blindly, I am following because I trust him. We would tell them straight up. That I just gave you the reference. The Sahaba Karam were blind followers. The Muhaddiseen, I just gave you a reference. Imam Muslim was a blind follower. If he can follow somebody, Imam Shafi Rahmatullahi alayhi said, yes, I'm a blind follower. Why? Because as we mentioned earlier, is that as long as the qualification is there for someone to be a mujtahid, then we follow him. Because that's my job as the layman, that is my job to be a blind follower. That's all I can do. Either I follow Imam Shafi or I follow you. And you know, I don't know who you are. I don't know what your, your ilmi background is. I don't know what your agenda is. But I do know Imam Abu Hanifa. In fact, that's why in some of the books it says, it's always safer to follow the dead. What does that mean? Because the living, you never know what their agenda is. They may be planning some their own political party. They may be planning, to trick people. They may be planning to become. They want to be the imam of some masjid or something. You don't know what their agenda is. So right, their hidden agenda. So somebody who's dead, somebody whose authenticity you know. Yes, Imam Hanifa Rahmatullahi was somebody who is acknowledged in the books of history that he said that this guy prayed Fajr with the same wuzu of Isha. This guy finished one Quran every day in Ramadan. And you, mashallah, the brothers that have been here for the itikaf, you know how hard that is. This guy is someone who memorized hundreds of thousands of hadiths. This guy, people of his time, contemporaries of his time, until now, historians are validating his not only expertise in his field, but also validating his piety. So I'm comfortable following him. And at the end of the day, when I die, and the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked me, why did you do this? I said, look, ya Allah, I didn't know. So I asked those who did know. That's who you told me to follow. So that's who I'm following. I followed him. So I will be absolved of my responsibility. As a layman, we will be absolved of our responsibility. Just as if I am sick, I will not be held responsible to go, why don't you study, 4 years in med school, and then do your residency, and then diagnose yourself. By that time, you'll be dead. So similarly, my job is to go to a doctor to look, I know this person, he graduated from this field, this person, he has been certified by the state of Illinois, and he's to practice medicine, and he's been practicing for 10, 15, 20 years, and he doesn't have any complaints. If you do, check on the IDFPR, he doesn't have any complaints. Okay, I trust his judgment. So that's my job. Yes, brother. Yes, in fact, it was the same year. Imam Shafi was born 150 AH. Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullahi died at 150. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. No, that can't be possible. No. The brother was saying that someone came to Imam Shafi Rahmatullahi and he said, they were comparing his verdicts with those of Imam Hanifa Rahmatullahi, to meet him in person. No. That's why, that I went through that history, because we need to realize, it's very easy to confuse people on that. Any other questions? I want you to ask. Because until you have the peace of mind, because these are issues dealing with deen, and you need to be confident on what you are practicing. Yes, brother. Yes, go ahead. Yes. You need to do what? I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. No, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's logical for them to tell them, look, as a layman, I'm not an expert in every field. And if you are giving me this reference, yes, I completely respect the work of Imam Khalid Rahmatullahi alayh, but I don't know what the other references may be. So but if you have a specific question, why don't you talk to so-and-so and refer them to the ulama. So they can have the discussion and say, look, I trust him, I'm following him. If you have a problem, you can talk to them. That's the best way for you to get out of it as a layman. Yes, brother. Okay. Hmm. Right. I don't want to comment on a specific group or something, but just in general, I think anybody who's been paying attention to these discussions, they know exactly, who we're referring to. Because throughout the time, there have been people, munkarin hadith, there have been different groups that came in throughout the time. But as I don't want to go in the negative aspect of attacking anybody. I just want you to have the solid foundation that if you have a question, you know where to turn to. And to be honest, I don't want to question somebody's sincerity. A lot of these people that bring these up, they are sincere. It's just that they've been very easily misled. Until you have the background of what we've been discussing for the last few days, it can be very easy to misunderstand. If somebody's giving me Bukhari, and obviously somebody's doing it against Bukhari, and then, hey man, what is this? But you need to understand that there's a whole other vast amount of knowledge, not just Sahih Bukhari. And there are people who analyze that information, and the people that give you the verdict based on that analysis. So let's give these people their proper due. And if somebody's doing that, then you can always refer them to the experts. Alhamdulillah, especially in Chicago, we are fortunate to have ulama here. If somebody has a question, as the awam, so what you do, as his brother is saying, as a layman, I want to say, look brother, I don't know. I am comfortable with this person's knowledge. I'm comfortable with this person's piety. I am following him. But if you have questions specifically, this question you brought up, how does this fit in? Why don't you talk to so-and-so? Alhamdulillah, like I gave some names, both in Maulana Sahib in Chicago, Maulana Abdul Aziz here in Elgin, Maulana Abdullah Salim in Elgin. These are senior ulama, Maulana Abdul Aziz. And mashallah, we have many, the new fresh ulama like Mufti Minhaj, Mufti Azim, Mufti Azaz, Mufti Abrar. Alhamdulillah, we have Mufti Hashim, who just came back, studying from under the guidance of Mufti Ibrahim Desai. Alhamdulillah, and we have, if you really need to go to the internet, and to be honest, it's very hard to not use the internet nowadays. But all I'm saying is use authentic sources. If you want a masala, rather than just asking Google, okay Google, what do I do by this? You say, go to askimam.com. Go to shariaboard.com. These are authentic sites. Askimam.com is run by Mufti Ibrahim Desai, based in South Africa. Sharia board is run by Mufti Rahman Sahib with the whole group of ulama. There's 6 ulama that are there full-time. Mufti Ghulam Sundani, Mufti Abdul Sattar, Mufti Maulana Abdul Aziz, Maulana Abdul Rahim, Maulana Amjad. These are full-time ulama, and that's all they do. And this is a common complaint against the ulama was, these guys are living in some hut in India, they don't know what we're dealing with in the USA. No, these are people that are living here. In today's time, you can go, you can call them, you can visit them in their houses. They know exactly what you're going through. So let's, it's very easy to minimize what they've done. But alhamdulillah, we have references today. So if anybody comes up, just to answer that question, so if anybody does give you, that question, say, look brother, why don't you talk to Mufti Rahman Sahib, go to Sharia board, and he can give you the answer. That's fine. If they're really sincere, they will go. But if they just want to cause conflict, then that's their problem. Yes, brother. And yes, brother. Yes, actually, as we mentioned before, there were many mujtahidins. Not just these 4, there were many other that had the ability to do ijtihad. The question was that he's asking that Imam Bukhari was not a muqallid. No, he was not. He was one of the few from the Sahasitta who was not a muqallid. He was a mujtahid himself. He himself had his own mazhab. He did his own ijtihad. Because, as I'm saying, he had the expertise. Not only was he a muhaddis, he knew so many hadiths, he was also a faqih that could analyze the hadith. So he did. He was qualified to do that. But the problem is, now the question can arise, well, why don't I follow the mazhab of Imam Bukhari? We don't have the mazhab of Imam Bukhari. That's the problem. Imam Bukhari did not have enough students who wrote down his fatwa. That's where the difference comes in. We have his hadith. You have the hadith of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. But unlike the other ulama, like Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, his students, Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, mashallah, his students did a lot of work, where they actually wrote down the fatwa of Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi. That's why we have a solid mazhab to base on Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi. Same thing, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, he had three main students, Imam Yusuf rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Zufar, and Imam Muhammad rahmatullahi alayhi. And these guys actually wrote down the fatwa of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. And we have these in Mabsut. Mabsut literally means long. So literally there's like 30 volumes of the research of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. That on this end, they're separated by different masail, and that's why we have that as a reference. That's why we have only these four. The question is why we have only these four. Because Allah chose these four to have students who preserve their knowledge. Not that they're better than others. I'm not saying that Imam Abu Hanifa is better than Imam Bukhari. No, we're nowhere to compare. Alhamdulillah, they're in the law, Allah knows, whose status is higher. But it's just that others, and as we mentioned before in the name, Ishaq bin Rahway rahmatullahi alayhi, Ibn Sirin rahmatullahi alayhi, Abdullah bin Barik rahmatullahi alayhi, Ibn Jurayj rahmatullahi alayhi, many others. There were hundreds of fuqaha at that time, many hundreds of mujtahideen. But their mazhab, meaning their research, was not saved. These four that we have, they are saved, and through that, alhamdulillah, this will continue. Inshallah. Any other question? I'm sorry? I'd rather not get into the negative and pointing fingers and names. The question, there have always been a time when people, there have been a time when people tried to downplay the importance of hadith. The question was, what this certain group, when did they start and how did they do this? I don't want to take particular names, but there have always been time. That's why we took 10 days to go through this, the discussion that we're having today, is that throughout time there have been people who downplay the importance of the hadith, who downplay the importance of the fuqaha. There have always been throughout time. In fact, they started, back, even during the time of Sahabis and the Tabi'in. Yes. But in different shapes and forms. But now we have, in different categories. Yes. Actually, there's one more point. Oh, one second. There's one more point. Yes, brother. Go ahead. Right. The question is, there is a hadith that says there will be 72 different firqas and different groups and different shahs. So how do I know that is true? We should be careful. Am I be one of them? But at the end of that hadith, it clarifies who that is. وَمَا أَنَا عَلَيْهِ وَأَصْحَابِي. That which I am following and my sahabis are following. So if that's why, if the consensus of the Sahaba Ikram are following something, then that is what we follow also. In fact, that's a good question. Yes, brother. Yes, time is up actually. Inshallah.
You actually talked about the problem is that quote unquote fifth, sixth, or seventh group of people don't follow any, or they don't claim to follow any of the imams. Then brother shared with us that Imam Bukhari was not following any of the imams.
Mm-hmm.
But he had the knowledge, he could do the ijtihad, and he followed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sunnah, and all that. So I'm confused if someone claims to also follow a Sahih Bukhari and able to follow Sahih Bukhari, and doesn't call himself Hanafi, Maliki, or whatever, and why would that be a problem, as you mentioned in your lecture today?
So the question you're asking is, what is the issue with someone following Sahih Bukhari? No, there's no issue in following Sahih Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari is a hadith. But hadith is not going to give you the fiqh. Fiqh means it's not going to give you a verdict. So if he's telling a hadith, just like we mentioned yesterday, the hadith of urinating, standing up, that's just a hadith. That's just one glimpse. Oh, again, what is a hadith? Hadith is a glimpse of what happened in the time of Prophet Muhammad. It's a snapshot. Now that snapshot can be taken out of context, it can be taken, or it can be used as a reference. So Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi never, how can we say, impressed upon people to follow this. What he was doing, he was transmitting knowledge that he had to the next generation. The knowledge, that hadith that he had, from, who's that, Abu Huzaifa radiallahu anhu was saying that I saw this. So he was, as a trustee of the knowledge that he was given through his teachers, he passed that knowledge on. But now the question is that knowledge, how can I say, is that the final verdict? So what we are saying is that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi never gave a verdict on a particular issue. He did. I mean, he does say certain things, but his mazhab is not, how can you say, completely valid. He does not offer, opinions on nikah and talaq and business and stuff like that. So in order to follow Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, you may follow him in certain issues, nothing wrong with that. But in all issues that are pertinent to deen, he does not give his opinions. So then there will be a void. So what do you do to fill that void? That's the question comes in. So we'll just finish. I know time is short. I just wanted to mention one last thing, where the dangers from what this happens. That if you just follow, just somebody who just does their own research, there may be certain issues that come up. And I want to bring this up because I know I get calls all the time. One popular issue, divorce. So hadith, Prophet ﷺ is saying, Thalatu jiddu hina jiddun, wa hazlun jiddun. Nikah, talaq, itaq. Prophet ﷺ says there are three things that even if you're just playing around, you're say, oh, I was just kidding. No. If you're talking to your wife, oh, I divorced you. No, I was just kidding. There are three things that even when you are kidding, they count. In fact, our elders, they're very particular, especially about the word of divorce. I'm talking to especially men, and it's the men that actually have the problem. And especially if you're not married, I'm giving you this as a warning now. Even if you're young, you should remember this for the rest of your life. Never play around with the word divorce. It's like a bullet. If you point a gun at somebody, if you press the trigger, it's going to hurt somebody. And later on, say, oh, I was just kidding. Yeah, you may be kidding, but that bullet hit somebody in the head and it's dead. So similarly, when you say the word divorce, it counts. And a man who is married can only give his divorce to his wife 3 times. Anything more than that, then they cannot stay together as husband and wife. They need to be separated. Until there's a whole lengthy procedure where they can get back together, but they cannot be together again. So they only get a chance of 3. And 1 is to say, yes, I divorce you. This is sarih divorce. The other is kinaya. Kinaya means, oh, get out of here. I don't want to see you again. When a husband says this to his wife, if he meant divorce, then it acts as divorce. It then depends on the intention of what the guy says. So be very careful how you deal with this. And especially these type of people, what they're saying is, if you say 3 divorce, 3 equals 1. Now, how they get to that, that's a whole long discussion. Same thing about the 20 Tarawih, something that never has happened in the history of the Ummah. Up until this last century, there have always been 20 rakats of Tarawih in the Haram. Similarly, in the consensus of the Ummah, always 3 divorces equal 3 divorces. But what happens is a lot of people say, oh, I was mad, I told my wife I divorced you 1,000 times. Oh, I divorced you 100 times. Who in the right mind would do that? Then they come back later on, I was mad. Well, obviously you were mad. Nobody's going to divorce their wife, baby, I love you, but I divorce you. No one says that. So be very careful. I'm giving you, a warning, because sometimes when it's too late, that's when people come to us. I said this, I was angry, we were in an argument, and this is what I said. I said, look, brother, I'm sorry, I can't help you. This is what Mufti Sahib was saying, in that announcement. A Mufti is not happy giving a fatwa when he knows this is going to affect somebody's lives. But this is very serious, especially for the men here. If you take this as one masala, as broadly speaking, about the whole understanding of the deen, effort of deen. But one masala that I want to take from you, you tell your brothers, tell your sons, tell your male family members in your family, never play with this word of divorce. Yes, sometimes if a marriage is not working out, yes, there are ways to give a divorce. There are ways to give a divorce. Yes, you go through proper channels and then you can separate amicably. That's fine. The both of you go along your own way. But just to play with the word, that's very dangerous. And one last thing, I know time is finished. Mufti Saab was saying, we have to go for iftar. Business. Matters dealing with business, interest is haram. A lot of people here, living in this country, say, oh, we buy a house on a mortgage, can match a mortgage, nobody, when in Rome, do as the Romans, especially after 9/11. There was a lot of this, talk about, oh yeah, you can shave your beard, oh, the ladies can take off their scarf, now the Muslims are being persecuted. There's no basis for that. Interest in any form is haram. Buying and selling. Obviously, working in a bank, working in some insurance company, these are important major sins. I don't want to leave you with that, but due to the lack of time, this is something you need to, if you are involved in that, talk to me personally, talk to Mufti Saab personally, but these are important things that you need to change. So I'll just leave you with that. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll have a little bit something on the lighter side. But I just wanted to finish this today, because who knows, the day after tomorrow may be Eid, inshallah. So I would ask now, inshallah, to proceed downstairs for iftar, inshallah. There's only a few minutes left, so let's go downstairs for iftar. Jazakallah khair. Subhanallah.